Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Nimrod Pod. I am your embattled host, Lou Stump, and it is my greatest honor to be sitting alongside my brothers in arms, Chet Lifkit and Joey Donati. We are reporting to you live from FEMA Region 6 for our first ever in-person taping in a professional studio. That's right, the Nimrods have gone legit. We have an action-packed agenda for you today, so let's dive right in. Alex Jones had a 45-minute conversation with Ed Martin last week. And for those of you that don't know, Ed Martin has been fighting the deep state for over 3 decades as a lawyer and political activist. That's longer than Alex Jones himself. President Trump appointed Martin as U.S. Attorney of Washington, D.C., but his confirmation was quickly blocked by Congress. Why did they block him? Well, it's because D.C. is the place jurisdictionally where you can take the big deep state cases. So President Trump moved around it by creating a special office for Ed Martin, where he now has nationwide jurisdiction, overseeing a growing list of secret strike forces. One of the publicly known strike forces led by Martin is the Weaponization Working Group. They have been tasked by the president to investigate and prosecute the deep state for government weaponization against conservatives. Martin finally got approval to start sharing his progress with the media, and he chose to give Alex and InfoWars the exclusive. Here is a quick summation of the key developments he shared. First, rather than spending months building complex racketeering cases, they're going to go after mortgage and tax fraud. Ed Martin is going after the deep state for the very things they accuse Trump of. Now, the strike force can quickly identify cut and dry fraud and indict the bad guys immediately. Second, a big problem that they've run into is finding workhorses in the DOJ that are capable of and willing to carry out Martin's orders with speed and agility. President Trump has given the orders to fire anyone that doesn't comply and has brought in people with proven track records to replace them. Ever heard of Andrew Bailey? He's the current Attorney General of Missouri. He has been brought in as the alleged co-deputy director of the FBI. Now, FBI whistleblowers leaked that Dan Bongino has already resigned. He's got one foot out the door, but he has agreed to stick around a while longer until Bailey's up and running. The exclusive report is that Bailey is actually preparing to backfill Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, who has been nothing short of an absolute embarrassment. Now, it's not just FBI leadership that is getting overhauled. Rumor has it, Ed Martin himself has been put in place to replace Pam Bondi as Attorney General of the United States of America. Martin also leaked where the big grand juries are open in. They're not in D.C., ladies and gentlemen. 97% of D.C. courts are rigged and run by the Democrats. The key grand juries are open in Virginia, Missouri, New York, and Florida. Jurisdictions full of red-blooded people, not snowflakes. One of the jurisdictions in Virginia includes the NSA, Fort Meade, and CIA Langley. Uh-oh, deep state, you better pack your bags and go to Mexico before it's too late. Now, if you tune into the mainstream media outlets, including Fox News, nobody is taking this seriously. The majority of so-called patriot influencers don't even believe that there are grand juries open, even though they are publicly open, and the bad guys are being subpoenaed, and the bad guys' houses are being raided. White House sources have confirmed that indictments are going to happen, and if they don't, Pam Bondi will be fired, and someone will be put in that will actually follow through and deliver President Trump's mandate. Now, listeners of the Nimrod Pod, prepare for false flags. The Democrats know indictments are coming, even if you don't, and they are ready to raise hell. Trump has officially declared war on the deep state. Ed Martin and President Trump need public support to put pressure on the DOJ to follow through with these indictments. I know President Trump is fumbling on Epstein. I know he's fumbling on the deportations. But what he's doing right now is absolutely devastating to the deep state. Joe Biden wouldn't do this. Kamala Harris wouldn't do this. George W. Bush wouldn't do this. Let's support the president when he's doing good things for humanity. And let's criticize him when he's not. It's time to step up, Nimrods. It's time to take a stand. What are our thoughts?
Lou, great opening segment. I think based on Trump's track record in 2025 so far, not good. Not good. I've seen a lot of things that are kind of patronizing because he says one thing and does another. He'll put on a show for the people. He'll put on a show on the news. People will report on it. They'll tell the story to the masses, but what we see in his actions are something entirely different. One thing I'm worried about with this change is, what if he's putting something up to make people happy for the short term, and it's not going to make any long-term differences? Just based on the beginning of Trump's this second term, I have to be skeptical about any new advances that he's trying to make towards the deep state, because what I've seen so far, he's protecting them.
No, this is a good thing. And fighting the swamp is what we've been wanting to do, been wanting Trump to focus on more, right? So one thing I've been able to see is his loyalty to Trump, right? Apparently they talk once a week. I think Trump praised him for being unbelievable at his job after the U.S. attorney bid got blocked. And right now, he's looking into Biden's pardons, which I love, because I feel like there's a lot of gray area with the amount of pardons that Biden made. So I think this is all a good thing. I think it's kind of nice to, yeah, you're right, Lou and Chet, praise Trump a little bit for these good actions and see where they might go.
Great points, and I respect them. Alex Jones himself was the only one that was shouting from the rooftops in 2016 all the way to 2020 that indictments are not happening. But it's different now. Trump learned from his first term, and now he's ready to officially drain the swamp.
Do you really believe that, Lou?
If you don't believe Alex Jones, maybe you'd believe the man that's heading up the task force that is responsible for indicting the bad guys. Is his word not good enough for you? Does he need to go on InfoWars for you to believe a single word he's saying? Do you need to go online and look at the White House website and see that grand juries are open? See that the bad guys are subpoenaed? Do you need to turn on Channel 6 and see that John Bolton's house is being raided?
I do need to see that.
You already did. It already happened last Saturday.
I need to see more. It's good. It's good progress. I agree. It's good progress. We need more.
That's fair. Sometimes grand juries aren't enough. Sometimes subpoenas aren't enough. Sometimes a knock on the door in the middle of the night isn't enough. But it will be enough: indictments. The problem is Ed Martin can't do it by himself. Even if they open these grand juries and subpoena the bad guys and raid their house and find a bunch of bad shit that they did, doesn't mean they're going to jail.
It doesn't.
That's why they need public support to put pressure on the broader DOJ that has been infiltrated by Israel. That's right. I said it.
Do you think public pressure on the DOJ would force them to make a change? They've had public pressure since the 70s to change, and they've never changed.
There wasn't an open stream of communication in the 70s, Chet. There's this new thing called X. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. You've probably had your nose fucking buried in threads the past 4 years. You need to wipe the crust out of your eyes and get your head in the game.
X, it's all happening on X, the Everything app.
The Everything app.
It is the Everything app. And I'm not sure if you guys knew this. Aside from all the exciting stuff that Ed Martin's doing, Tulsi Gabbard's been hard at work uncovering evidence on the bad guys. Let me tell you a little something. They have found evidence that Jack Smith, Trump's worst nightmare for the past 8 years, was planning to try thousands of American Trump supporters and conservatives for their involvement in J6. He literally proposed to model this strategy after UN tribunals and the Maxi trials, where Italy tried thousands and thousands of mobsters at once without giving them due process. Now, this is a clear and obvious violation of something called the Constitution that pretty much nobody in Congress apparently is aware of. It's been around since 1776. It's one of the most detailed and thought out pieces of paper of all time. And it would benefit us all to maybe carry around a pocket constitution.
You could. I think the Constitution might have been constituted a little bit later than 76. I know the independence, the Declaration went down in 76, but water under the bridge, Lou. Water under the bridge. But hey, I definitely agree. I mean, if we had politicians that cared about the Constitution, this would be a very different place right now. This would be a much different place. And we don't. Any progress in the right direction is good for me. I need to see action. I don't want words anymore. I don't want images. I don't want imagery. I don't want symbolism. We need decisive action.
Amen. Now, enough about what's going on right now. Let's start uncovering shit that happened in the past that people apparently don't want to talk about anymore. My buddy Joey Donati is going to do a quick deep dive on what really happened at the Las Vegas shooting.
October 1st, 2017. The Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas. It's packed. Okay, 22,000 fans, crammed in there for a Jason Aldean concert. Then, out of nowhere, gunfire explodes. People like screamed and scattered, over 60 people dead, 800 injured, and the feds say that Stephen Paddock, who is a 64-year-old high roller gambler, shot from the Mandalay Bay's 32nd floor and killed himself. No motive, no partners, just one guy. The evidence makes you question a lot of this, so let's dive in. A lot of this has been resurfaced, actually, and survivors on X and Reddit reported gunfire from the ground near the Tropicana and a helicopter with no transponder. It's all backed by flight data. Marilou Danley, who's Paddock's girlfriend, allegedly shouted, "You're all going to die," 45 minutes before the attack. And again, this information was posted on X and Reddit, which the FBI quickly buried, along with YouTube videos, several audio clips. But if we dive into Paddock's profile, this shit doesn't add up. Okay, he's got big money and he has tripped to the Middle East. 47 guns were found in that room. 47 guns. I ain't no mathematician, but 47 guns is a lot for one guy. Reddit post claimed he was an arms dealer or a CIA patsy, possibly tied to a deal that could have went bad, but videos from this shooting show rapid overlapping gunfire, suggesting multiple shooters or heavier weapons like an M240, not just Paddock's rifles. One of the most important pieces of the Vegas shooting evidence was a video that showed the window in Paddock's Mandalay Bay room 32135 was unbroken when police breached it at 12:23 a.m., which was over 2 hours after the shooting stopped at 10:15 p.m. If the window in his room wasn't broken, Paddock couldn't shoot anyone. Another room had a broken window facing the luxury. Now, the main theory that I found diving into all this, curious to hear you guys' thoughts, is that this is tied to a Saudi power struggle. And in 2017, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, also known as MBS, was taking control by arresting rival princes to secure power. Some people imply these rivals, such as Prince Mansour bin Makrin or allies of Alawid bin Talal, were threatened by MBS's rise and tried to use Vegas to take him out, possibly maybe leveraging Paddock as a patsy with his 47 guns and Middle East ties. Now, witnesses on X say they saw a man in a wig and a Hawaiian t-shirt rushed out of a casino, and some think it was MBS escaping. A month later, on November 4th, Prince Mansour bin Makrin, a rival to MBS, died in a helicopter crash. Now, people argue, the U.S. covered this up to protect Saudi relations and avoid exposing a CIA link, but again, no one really knows. The FBI hid a note in Paddock's room, and MGM, which is loaded with cameras, could only come up with 6 minutes of footage. This is Las Vegas we're talking about. It's gotta be more footage than that. The FBI's report in 2019 found no motive, but insisted Paddock acted alone. But I don't know, guys, something's up here. What do you think?
I just want to say, once you get to the part where you find the window and the window's not broken, you realize the official story out the window. It's gone. It's impossible. He couldn't have shot through a unbroken window, and you can't open them. So that's just what I want to say. First of all, the story is out. So obviously there's something going on. I'm not an expert on the Saudi operation. I know Lou generously tried to explain it to me yesterday, but sometimes things are too complex for Chet. You know what I mean? But I really want to emphasize the point that the 17 minutes of footage that was captured by the New York Times and the Associated Press after the incident, once they came up with the full story, each of them cut out the same 17 seconds or 30 seconds in the middle of the footage when the cops breached the room for the first time and discovered on audio that there wasn't a broken window in there. The helicopter cops were radioing in saying, "Are you guys the one with the broken window? Are you in there?" And they're like, "Window's not broken." And then, I don't know what happened. Right after that, they said, "Oh yeah, we are in there. We are in the one with the broken window."
And you know what the funny thing is? The headquarter folks on the radio were saying, "Are you in the room without the window? We see movement. We need to make sure it's you guys." They're like, "No.
Nope."
We're like, and you see video of them opening the curtains, checking the windows. They've literally done a full sweep of the house, and they're just chilling. One of them lit up a cigarette. The other guys are playing checkers. And they go, no, all these windows are intact.
Yeah.
And then one really smart guy, big nose, he said, just kidding. This is a family show. One of the really smart guys who's clearly plugged in, you know what he said? "Oh, no, there's a broken window. It's just a different room." And they all simultaneously said, "You're right." And none of them went to go look at the window.
Correct.
They immediately turned around and left the room. What's up with that, Chet?
Hey, Lou, what is up with that, right? Because you can make all the theories you want. You know, we could go anywhere with this. It could have been a lot of things. Obviously, it's a terrible tragedy. I just think what I get from it, the main point, is that somebody is pushing the lie. Somebody's pushing the lie to cover it up, to keep somebody safe. Because we get the story, and it's obviously wrong, based on the first piece of evidence that you talked about. And what do they expect us to think, right? It's so obviously just a false flag.
I don't understand why. I don't understand Paddock's involvement in this, how he plays a role basically into whatever their scheme may be here.
Let's dive into a little something here. Before we prep for this podcast, I knew it was shady. I mean, if you just listen to these videos, you listen to the audio of the concert, you've got to be brain dead retarded to think that on that night, there was a lone gunman. There were clearly multiple weapons firing. We're told that this man had a bunch of ARs with bump stocks. We're told that a 64-year-old lone gunman fired over 1,000 rounds in 10 minutes using an AR with a bump stock that magically never jammed. Sounds like the mainstream media doesn't know how guns work.
They don't.
Us here in Texas do.
It's obvious that they don't, you know? The politicians don't either. You know, they'll try and ban assault rifles. You try and define it. What is it, you know? But every video that gets posted of the gunfire, you know, you hear the audio of the gunfire. Every single comment down the line is an ex-military veteran saying, that's not an AR. That's not one AR. First of all, it's not one gun. Second of all, it's an M240. And it's coming from the goddamn helicopters. But absolutely ridiculous that somebody was paid to come up with the story that it was an AR with a bump stock. Whoever was paid to do that must not have been paid enough because they are an absolute idiot. It was probably the worst cover-up I've ever seen.
I hear about every single school shooting that's ever happened every single week, every time I turn on the news, and they say they got to take my guns away. Why are we not talking about the largest mass shooting in modern history? Why not? Why don't we talk about Vegas? If he really was using an AR with a bump stock, why is this not front page news every day? Why is this not their sole talking point? I don't understand that. More Americans died there than any school shooting. What's up with that?
What is up with it, Lou?
I'll tell you what's up with it. Because you guys are right. It is a cover-up. And before I dove into this, I thought it was just shady. I thought clearly there was more than one shooter. I thought clearly Paddock was set up, or he was working with a team of multiple shooters. What I didn't know is the Saudi involvement. And once I really started to dive deep into the story, the entire story is a Saudi Arabian power struggle. Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with Blackwater. Blackwater, founded by Eric Prince, is an American private defense contractor. They do all of the private security for President Trump. They actually work with the administration pretty closely, especially when Biden was in power and Trump couldn't trust Biden's Secret Service to protect him. Well, there's a company in Saudi Arabia called ETS. They are essentially the Saudi Arabian version of Blackwater. Why does this matter? It matters because ETS was in Vegas during the shooting. In fact, they were working with Maverick helicopters on that night. And they were training with the U.S. government back and forth between Vegas and Mesa, Arizona, which was just over 200 miles away, for weeks. Why were they there? Well, it's because someone else was there. MBS, Prince of Saudi Arabia. His father might be the king, but he is the de facto leader of the government. And he had just recently come into power. And he was actually staying in Al-Wajid's room in the Four Seasons. The Four Seasons is in the same exact building as Mandalay Bay, but it comprises of the top floors, including a floor that had a broken window.
Doesn't Al-Wajid own Mandalay Bay as well?
You're right. And at the very least, I know he owned the room, and that is why MBS was staying there. It gets more interesting. Apparently, Al-Wajid was setting up MBS. He wanted to kill him. And over the coming months, MBS would learn of evidence, voice memos from Al-Wajid telling ETS, I want you to kill his children and his wife first, and this is how I want you to kill him. it involved some dismembering. It involved torturing MBS with his dismembered family members before eventually killing MBS. Now I know what your question is. Then why did all these Americans die?
Yeah. What caused Stephen Paddock?
Why'd they have to kill
They
him?
probably pulled out of the fucking casino to do this.
Well, this is where ETS comes in. This is where Maverick Helicopters comes in. If we watch the footage from that night, you hear the rounds firing off, and if you zoom in to that room in Mandalay Bay that they claim Paddock was in, there is no muzzle fire whatsoever, no sparks, nothing. But if you zoom out of the video, you will see muzzle fire in exact sequence with the audio coming from the skies out of several helicopters.
Unmarked.
Unmarked. Guess what?
No call signs.
No call signs. If you look at the transponder, if you look at the radar, you see 2 helicopters enter the scene mere minutes before the shooting starts, and they turn their transponders off. One of them never returned to Maverick Helicopter HQ until 3 months later. The other one eventually came back that night, still with the transponder off. The funny part is, if you actually watch the footage from that fateful night, you can see up to 15 helicopters at once hovering above the madness. They would go around Mandalay Bay and the shooting would stop. They'd come back around, the shooting would start. Is that a coincidence? No. And yes, eventually a window does get busted open. But you know why? It's because they had to go into Paddock's room and murder him. If you look at the body cam footage from the SWAT team when they burst into Paddock's unit, only one of them has their body cam on, and it's facing towards his face. So you can't even see the scene, but you can hear the audio. You hear, "Good shot." Good shot. What does that mean? Oh, one of them must have shot Paddock because they killed him. Well, if you look at the picture of him laying on the ground, there's a bunch of dried up blood on the ground and a bullet hole in his chest. And then there's a big bloody one that blew up his head. The Saudis came into Paddock's room, killed him to make it look like a suicide, propped him up with a gun facing the door so that the SWAT team would shoot him in the head and make it look like he was killed by the SWAT team and not ETS and not Paddock.
You just fucked my brain, Lou.
Could you tell me why Paddock was the one they chose?
Because he's a white male?
Maybe so. I know the agenda that got pushed afterwards was that the AR-15s with bump stocks were unsafe. And they got banned in several states, right? So it worked. But I don't think that's enough. I don't think that Stephen Paddock being a white male is enough. I know he was a serial gambler. Why did the Saudi government need him? Why was it him?
He was a diversion. He was a diversion from the helicopters that were doing the damage. We're told that shots were coming out of Mandalay Bay. They're coming from the helicopters hovering above it. And if you talk to people on the ground and you look at the footage, there's clearly folks on the ground that are shooting as well. Who was that? That was ETS. Another diversion. Now, let's talk about the women that were screaming during the concert saying, "You're all going to die, you're all going to die." These women were in charge of sneaking ETS into the country and putting them in place to commit this massacre. They were also in charge of putting Paddock in that room and getting all the guns up there. But they weren't told this. They were just told, get these assets to this location. And before it was too late, they realized what was happening, started screaming. But nobody listened. Nobody listened.
Before we move on, tiny detail. Security guard Jesus Campos, supposedly shot by Paddock, dodged interviews. Only by appearing on, guess who? Ellen, to tell the story. I don't know about you guys. Seems a little weird for someone to say no to interviews after a massacre like this, being a key witness who allegedly saw Paddock. But hey, we'll let you go on, Ellen. Tell a story.
For sure. I just kind of want to go back to this. Paddock was a distraction. ETS had people on the ground also acting as a distraction to take attention away from the helicopters. They were committing the mass murder from the helicopters, and they had other helicopters in charge of smuggling MBS out of there. When MBS caught on to what was happening, he called the State Department. The State Department came in without the transponders on. They went around Mandalay Bay busted his shit open, popped him in the helicopter, took him to a safe house down the road. And Alex Jones had the gentleman on who owned the safe house. And they got him out of the country. Now, here's everyone's question. Donald Trump was in office. Why didn't he do anything about it? MBS told Trump, keep this quiet, because there's nothing you can do to these men that is going to justify what they did to your citizens. If you keep this quiet, if you cover this up, I will make sure they feel the wrath of Allah like no one could ever imagine. And a year later, to the day of the Vegas shooting, the 1-year anniversary, the king of Saudi Arabia invited all of the royal people, all of the leaders, to a concert. Shakira was performing that night. And that's when we had the killing of Khashoggi, journalists working alongside Al-Wajid to set up MBS and have him killed. They dismembered these men on camera. You can look it up. And they suffered the most gruesome, terrible death you could ever imagine. And if I know anything about President Trump, I'd say he'd prefer that over throwing them in jail or executing them with lethal injections. I think this is exactly what he wanted. And we avoided war. I'm not condoning Trump's decision, but based on what we know about him, this all adds up. So why would Trump cover this up? So they could feel the wrath of Allah.
Okay. But let's go back to the window part. Why would CIA lie about that in the moment, right? Talking about like the breaking of the window.
They got the call.
Right away. The State Department
From the Don?
equals CIA, just so you know. If anyone you know that lives in DC or the DMV says, yeah, my dad, my mama, my uncle, my brunkle, my stepbrother, they work for the State Department. That means they work for the CIA. It's a cover, just like Tucker Carlson's father worked for the State Department and Voice of America, but he was really one of the highest ranking directors in the CIA. That's why. I don't want to move on from this topic just yet. I feel like there's so much more for us to hit on. Let's go back to the gunman on the ground. Let's talk about the gentleman that killed Paddock. There are eyewitness testimonies, 911 calls from over 5 different casinos, miles apart, that saw Arabic men running around with assault rifles. If you look at the Vegas shooting map, you see dozens and dozens of 911 calls. You can listen to the audio. You see pictures, you see videos of like these taxi drivers going, what are these guys doing? What are they running around? But you don't see this on the news. They had people on the ground diverting everyone's attention so that nobody knew what the fuck was going on at the time of the shooting. MBS caught on because people were trying to kill him. He heard the shooting. He called Trump. State Department came in, bailed him out. And at that point, ETS is like, we got to get out of here alive. They had guys on the ground. They had guys in helicopters. And Trump allowed them to escape. They didn't just get away. They didn't just escape in their helicopters, hop on a fucking airplane runway and take a private jet back to the Holy Land. No, Trump let them go. I wouldn't even be surprised if Trump put them on Air Force One and said, don't worry, guys, I'll protect you. A year later, they got what came to them. And a lot of these revelations wouldn't be possible without the work of John Cullen. That is a pseudonym. If you look up I am John Cullen on Google, you will be surveilled. If you click on the top link from New York Times, it glitches out and you get to see a massive list of addresses that have now just consumed all of your data. Why is this? Why do they not want us to know?
Don't use Google. If you're still using Google in 2025, you're doing it to yourself. But yeah, no, that guy put out some great work, great resources about this topic to actually spread the truth. So if you're going to research it, use it on X. This doesn't surprise me, Chet. I mean, they've been censoring us. They say they aren't, but we all know they're tracking our data.
100%.
They call it a free speech app, and you get flagged for anything. Pretty much anything now. Got to be very careful.
You do.
If you're building a brand, let's say you have a big podcast and you run the show and you're getting revenue from X, and you post anything that's in direct misalignment with X's terms and conditions, flagged, censored. Is that free speech?
You have a point. You're not wrong. And this does happen. And a lot of it actually comes from the AI algorithms that they put in place. And sometimes it comes from corporate interests. Sometimes it comes from foreign governments. Like this same thing happened when Israel's cybersecurity chief was caught red-handed in the United States trying to meet up with a little boy. And they allowed him to escape to Israel where he could seek refuge. This is the motherland of pedophiles. If you ever get in trouble, go to Israel and you'll be safe. What's up with that? But X immediately took down all these posts from big journalists who were reporting this. But the public fought back. And you know what they did, Chet? They re-uploaded everything. That's the beauty of 2025.
Well, what's worse about that is you can keep it up. No one's going to see it. And they won't let anybody
shadow
do
ban.
that. Yeah. So that's another big problem with X.
You're right.
That's the thing. Shadow ban, demonetization. That's what they'll do. Because you can still post it. You can still post it. You can still say it. Free speech. But deplatforming, it's the same thing.
You're right. But at least in 2025, there is a unbelievable strength from the American people that wasn't taken seriously in 2020. The American people have access to information if they dig hard enough. Obviously, it's not readily available, but if you look hard enough, you can find it. If you're connected with the right people, you can find it. There's alternate ways of consuming information. It's an information war we're living in, gentlemen.
One good thing that has come from X is that's a platform we're able to collaborate with others, view others' content, learn, educate ourselves. Can't do it on Instagram.
We have never had such a centralized pathway for information. You can know exactly what's going on the other side of the world instantaneously. It's called citizen journalism. It's something that we haven't really had before. So say what you want about Trump. Does a lot of dumb shit. Pisses me off a lot, actually. Same with Elon. But guess what? If their base talks loud enough, if their base pushes back, they listen. They listen. Because the strength of the American people is something that no other country has. And it's a shame that the American people don't realize it. But we are the backbone of this country. And if the government turned against us, they'd be absolutely fucked.
1776.
Because the answer to 1984 is 1776. All right. We've really beat this one into the ground. We've beat the shit out of this one. We beat the shit out of this one, just like those folks in Cincinnati at the Cincinnati Beatdown walking out of that jazz club. We just beat the shit out of the Las Vegas shooting. You guys are welcome. Get enlightened, motherfucker. Gentlemen, we're going to move on to something even more controversial. I know Spider's going to love this one. My friend Chet is going to do a deep dive on something called Pizzagate, WikiLeaks, and the Democrat pedophile network. Take it away.
Correct, Lou. Pizzagate's an old thing. You know, they started uncovering it in 2016. It kind of went away. You know, people kind of forgot about it in the mainstream news. I'm not surprised. There can be groundbreaking news of like people dying, you know, world-changing news. People will forget about it the next day. The masses will forget the next day. But Pizzagate. So back in the day, you know, there's a lot of conspiracies surrounding DC pizza parlors, but there's a few they're more notorious than the rest. One of them is Comet Ping Pong Pizza. James Alefantis, the owner, they have a very creepy network of Instagram posts. The employees and the connections of Comet Ping Pong Pizza, they have a network of very strange Instagram posts. They post a lot of children. Like, why, right? There's only one reason why they'd be doing that, first of all. So they post children eating the pizza, and then there's the pickle shop next door. What really stuck out to me when I was doing my research was Besta Pizza next door. Besta Pizza is a different shop. It's kind of honestly like if Comet was the retaining wall for people's attention, Besta Pizza is where the real problems happened. Because their logo, until somebody pointed it out, was a symbol that is known to the FBI as a marker for pedophiles. So it's a triangle that kind of circles in, and it's a symbol for something called boy lover.
It's like a maze.
Right. It's like a triangle maze, and it's a symbol for something called boy lover, known to the FBI. The logo of Besta Pizza was that. And so, you know, you see a tons of public figures going into these shops. You see Obama, you see Clinton, you see Anthony Bourdain and Obama. That's the picture I remember the most.
Podesta?
Right.
Epstein?
Podesta, Epstein, everything. So these DC pizza shops are harboring, I don't know if they still are, but they were harboring the most globalized hub of human trafficking, sex trafficking, child sex trafficking in the entire world. Why did nobody ever dig into this? We had a reporter go on the air. I think it was a DC Metro reporter. He basically hopped on the air and he said, "There's no evidence pinning these people down. There's no evidence that these people did anything wrong. But where do all these connections come from? You know, why do we see all these parallel lines adding up? Why do we see 2 + 2 everywhere?" They fired him, first of all. That's the kind of question that I'm focused on. His last question in his report was, if there's nothing going on, why has nobody looked into it? The amount of evidence at least warrants a little bit of investigation. And, you know, we have people that have investigated it now. But the FBI, DOJ never looked into it. Nobody ever looked into it. They just said it was debunked. It's all gone. There's more behind the doors of these pizza parlors. There's more behind what they did. There's more behind the pickle shop. There's more behind the hashtags on Instagram where you look up BH kids and you're able to find basically child pornography. There's more behind all this. Nobody ever looked into it because they're all involved. Go ahead, Lou.
I want to talk about BH kids. So during Barack Obama's final administration, the final term of his administration, Barack Obama had a little dinner with Anthony Bourdain at a Vietnamese restaurant after striking a major arms deal with Vietnam. Now, there was a peculiar Vietnamese saying on the wall behind him. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but I will tell you, if you type this into Google, it corresponds with a YouTube channel. And if you look at this YouTube channel, it's a bunch of videos of children dancing, music videos, Asian children. And there's a logo on every single video that says BH Kids. What is BH Kids? Well, if you Google BH Kids, proceed with caution, because it leads to a plethora of websites showing children modeling underwear. Some images suggested by Google, and they come from this well-known clothing website. Well, if you go to the clothing website and you follow the hyperlinks, you will not be able to find these pictures of children. Some of them half-naked children, actually. Flat-chested young girls, which is absolutely disgusting. But BH Kids is a code word. It is a key for child predators. If they type this in on Google, it will release them to the deep, dark web of the child pedophile networks.
What's the website? The brand website, the retail website, where if you go through it normally, you get the normal ads. You get the normal pictures of adults modeling the swimwear. But if you go through the Google search BH Kids and you find it from there, then you get a secret link unlocked. It's like a code word. And why was that in the back of the restaurant that Obama and Bourdain had a meal in after an arms deal? Why is that connected to the pizza parlors? Why is all this stuff connected? That's my question. And why did nobody look into it? It's because they're all fucking doing it. Because they're all involved.
All of them.
they would all go down. That's the only reason. That's the only possible reason, first of all. And it is the only reason based on the evidence. So come get me, Hillary Clinton. Right now. Come get me. I'm begging you.
Yeah. CIA, FBI. I know you're listening. I don't care. Smite me, almighty smiter. Come and get me. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm crazy.
It is crazy. After researching this, if you actually listen to some of these celebrities and how often they say pizza and hot dogs, Jennifer Aniston, Adam Sandler, it's ruined my ability to watch movies.
I forgot about the emails.
Yeah. Oh, I've got an email right here. Let's read it.
And let me tee it up for you, and you can dive into the emails. Just for our listeners, casual Nimrods, it all started, this whole Pizzagate thing started with Hillary Clinton's emails being leaked by someone inside the DNC. We called it WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. And it was all housed in Anthony Weiner's laptop. And pizza is a known code word for CP, I'm not going to say what CP means.
Everybody
because
knows what
I don't want to
CP
get demonetized. All right? We make a lot of money off this podcast. I'm not going to put my money at risk. I got kids to feed. CP. Look it up. Urban Dictionary.
Don't look it up. Everybody,
Oh, wait,
do not look
don't
that
do
up.
That. do not look that up.
Don't do it.
Don't look it up. But hey, you can even if you type in pizza, you will find Etsy accounts selling pictures of pizza and children eating pizza for thousands of dollars. Thousands of dollars.
How about the Wayfair ones? How about the cabinets? Let me pull that up.
So it all came from these email leaks. And if you look at the emails, they're not saying, I committed this crime. I'm going to do this bad thing that's going to put me in jail, and I'm putting it in writing. That's not what it is. It's all in code. Mm-hmm. Is this a cheese-related deal that you're making? Is this pepperoni pizza or is it sausage? How many hot dogs are you bringing to the pool party? I'll tell you what, the most powerful people in Washington are not talking about fucking pizza parties. They're not talking about backyard barbecues. They're talking about CP. They're talking about pedophilia. They're talking about satanic devil worshiper cult shit. Take it away.
Oh, I just got one quick email came across. October 8th, 2015. This email was sent at 9:26 in the morning from Tamara Luzzatto to John Podesta. And I'm not going to read the whole email, but an important segment I'll go over is, quote unquote, we plan to heat the pool, so swim is a possibility. Bonnie will Uber service to transport Ruby, Emerson, and Maeve. 11, 9, and almost 7 in parentheses. So their ages are important here.
Almost 7. It's important to note. Almost in range.
That's ridiculous.
So you'll have some further entertainment, and they will be in that pool for sure.
Disgusting.
Oh, it's sickening, and the people that turned a blind eye to this.
Yeah.
How could you?
No, I tell you what. Watching those videos that Lou kindly sent the other day, I was at work and I was watching them. I was sick to my stomach. I was disgusted for like 35 minutes.
Well, let's make sure you clarify. We're talking about documentaries about Pizzagate. These are the videos we are talking about. I just want to put that on the record.
We're talking about a guy behind a screen talking about this situation. The details of the story were so disgusting to me that I was actually having a fight or flight reaction in my seat at work. So disgusting. By the way, I want to dive into this thing that I found, years ago and that I knew about, but I never really looked into it. On Wayfair, there were cabinets that were listed for, $11,000, $12,000. Here's one for $13,699 right here. If that doesn't already spring an alarm, the cabinets were named after people. They were named Amaya. They were named Olivia. They were named Kyla. They were named Maria. They were named Piper. They were named after missing children. Officially reported missing children. They were named after officially reported missing children in the government database. So tell me, what is a possible explanation for that? What is a possible explanation? We can't have these things go on. We can't have this evidence come through. We can't have citizen journalists looking into Comet Pizza, looking into Besta Pizza. We can't have people uncovering these person-named cabinets for $12,000 and not do an investigation. We can't have the lack of clarity in the administration today. We can't have it. We can't have Trump covering up the Epstein files. We need him to release all of it. We need people to look into who did all this stuff. And, we have our theories about who did it. We have the people that are involved. We have the people that were pictured in the restaurants. What good is it to know? It's probably worse that we know and that they're not getting put in prison. It's probably worse. It's more patronizing to me that these things are allowed to go on. They're not putting them in prison. And the information about it is allowed to stay up on the internet. I think it's a massive middle finger to every single person in this country.
100%. And you know what my problem is, Chet? Everyone is so hyper-focused on Jeffrey Epstein. Let me educate you Nimrods out there. Epstein is just one leaf on a much larger tree of a multinational child sex trafficking, satanic deep state blackmail network. And there's never been a single investigation on Pizzagate, local or federal. This should take precedent in American discourse. If we're going to talk about Epstein, we got to talk about Pizzagate. We got to talk about WikiLeaks. We got to talk about the Clinton crime family. We have to. But Epstein's very important because if Epstein and his operation, if the Epstein files are released to the public, if the Trump administration is truly 100% transparent, and they release everything, and they open a new investigation led by Ed Martin to go after these guys and uncover the truth, and interview the people that were involved before they all die, that exposes everything. Every one of these blackmail networks, every one of these sex trafficking networks that are still going on today. Epstein died years ago, but during the Biden administration, hundreds of thousands of children were smuggled into this country and trafficked.
500,000.
And Secretary Kennedy released information from the HHS that during Biden's administration, he leveraged the HHS to assign these children to families, but have no record of them. That's why we can't find the children. We know they're missing, but we can't save them. Homan's trying his damnedest. DHS is looking for them, but there's no record.
They would assign these children at random, basically. Anybody who claimed them. There was one address. It might have been an apartment, and they were claiming like 400 of them. Still going on today. Even in their obscure networks. Personally, my opinion is if anything is on the internet, it must not be the deepest possible dive. If it's allowed to be up, it's probably not as far as they're going. They're definitely going further down. The LA tunnels, for example, when they were running kids through there. So
probably still doing it.
One thing I didn't know actually is that Anthony Weiner went to prison for committing sex crimes against minors. So when we have the laptop that has all this information, when we have the pizza parlors that are so obviously involved, when we have the pickle shop that's posting the pictures of kids with the pickles with the hashtags that are connected to the child pornography networks, the secret code words and shit. Why else have we not busted this entire thing down? Why else? What excuse does anybody have anymore? We can't do it. We can't do it for much longer.
Well, it's a cover-up, Chet.
It's a hoax.
Who are they covering up for? Let me list a few. Corporate interests. Bill Gates, Microsoft's top 2 largest companies in the world operating in America. Israel, Mossad, U.S. intelligence, MI6, KGB. Everyone's implicated, but especially the Americans, because it happened on our soil. And Trump was told, if any of this pedophile shit gets released, the American economy will crumble, the stock market will tank. It will cause uproar throughout the country. Nobody will trust the government ever again.
Good.
And we will lose our world hegemony. And my answer to that is, this country is fucked. The American people are fed up. And the thing about this Epstein shit is, we already know the whole story. It's all publicly available information, just no one got prosecuted. No one got in trouble, except for Epstein, then they killed him. What about all of his clients? There's not an Epstein list, guys. I hate to break it to you, but there's decades and decades of records of his business dealings. We talked about this last week.
There's names in there.
There's decades and decades.
Yeah.
It's not a list that says
no,
1 through 20, all of the people I worked with.
No one really means a list.
No, that they do. And that's the misconception. There is not a little black book that has everyone. No. There's decades and decades and decades of dense records of his business dealing.
Yeah.
And all of the people who he allegedly managed money for.
Right.
It's all public knowledge, but the government hasn't done shit about it. That's what the uproar is about. And guess what? If this administration is transparent, we're not going to revolt against the administration because they just were transparent with us. They weren't the ones that orchestrated these pedophile networks. The American people want answers. If we're transparent with each other, that is a step in the right direction. And that's how we ensure that the bad guys don't get in positions of power ever again.
Yeah, at least some of this stuff. Okay, we can get into the Diddy if we want to, but you gotta ease us in here. I mean, you can't just keep saying, "Oh, no, hoax." Hoax. That's Trump's favorite word, hoax. But don't underestimate these guys. There is a lot of information that we don't know about this. But based on what we know right now and what we just outlined for you guys, every news channel said, "Oh, it's fake." If you really looked into this, you'd know that there's definitely got to be some truth to it. So again, don't underestimate these guys. Hey, they might come after us.
You guys know my point. I don't think the government would crumble. I don't think the country would go into peril. I think at least, first of all, I think 50% of people are like barely conscious, but I think 30% of people that aren't barely conscious know that this stuff is going on and they just block it out of their mind because, you got to pay bills, you got to stay alive. But I don't think anybody would uproar.
I think initially, there might be a couple of riots.
There would be a ton of
against
people.
Who?
Yeah.
Like going to Bill Clinton's house and protesting and breaking in and snapping his neck. Maybe I could see that.
Yeah.
But that's not overthrowing it's not a revolution.
Oh, no. But like,
that's what we're talking about.
oh, no, society could.
Knock, knock. Anybody home?
Oh, I'm home.
He's home, bud. He's home, Lou.
Home?
See, no. Nobody would go after people. Maybe they would.
What?
I could see a false flag too, But the people know that this is going on, man. People know. People know in the information age that this shit happened. People don't know who's implicated, for sure. People don't know exactly what happened, for sure. It's probably worse than we know. It's probably worse than we think. It's probably worse than your wildest imagination. The people of America know that this shit is going on. They know that it happened before. They know that the pizza places are implicated. They know that all the politicians are doing it. They have evidence, The guy in Arizona, he had a child sex abuse violation crime, and they shipped his ass off to Israel real quick before he could get extradited. And now they don't extradite from Israel. But I don't think there would be an uproar at all. It would be like a moment of peace for once. Finally. It would be, finally, people know that the government is transparent. But do they want it or do they not? I know people who would rather have the government be secretive because they want them to be more powerful than other governments. But who knows, Lou? Who knows?
I'm not sure if you knew this, but Bill Clinton actually got impeached for hooking up with a White House intern while he was still in office. So people know he's a creep. Alex Jones literally had airplanes fly over Clinton Foundation events that said, Bill Clinton is a pedophile. He never got sued. Shouldn't that be defamation? No, because then they'd start digging into it. Everybody knows Clinton's corrupt. Everybody knows Epstein's corrupt. Everyone knows that our intelligence agencies staged a coup against the greatest president in American history for what he said about the CIA, for his demands to inspect Israel's nuclear capabilities like every other nation in the UN. And he got popped in FEMA Region 6. The people know the government's corrupt. The people know Hollywood's corrupt. The people know that all these people fuck kids. And we just want the government to be honest with us about it. That's what this is all about. The people know, and we need confirmation so that we don't sound like conspiracy theorists. And so that my grandma doesn't tell me I'm crazy when I talk to her, because she's a diehard Democrat that listens to CNN. That's why we need transparency, so we can move on from this shit and rebuild the great American Republic that overthrew the crown in 1776. We need to uphold the values of the Constitution and give the power back to the people for the love of God. The WEF, the deep state, the UN, they were so certain that the internet age was going to allow them to put us in a surveillance state where we lost all of our power, 1984 style. But it backfired because now we have access to information from any point on the earth at any point in time. And as long as those communication ways are still open, the people cannot be stopped.
Damn right. What else we got, Lou?
I want to talk about some more stuff that's in the news recently. We were talking about this Vegas shooting, and I expressed how I don't understand why the left, the anti-gun lobby, isn't talking about the biggest mass shooting on American soil in modern history. But they will talk about Parkland. They'll talk about Sandy Hook. They'll talk about Columbine. Why? Well, a terrible tragedy happened in Minnesota this past week as there was a shooting in a Catholic school while the kids were praying. A gunman came in and started mowing people down. Dozens hurt, some killed. It was the gun. It was the gun that did it. I would like to prosecute the gun. The gun just walked in there and just shot him. Put that gun behind bars. Put that gun behind bars. Show your hands, gun. Nobody's talking about the shooter. Who's the shooter?
What did the shooter look like, Lou?
Looked like a concrete version of a human.
The shooter's name.
Was the shooter a member of the school? Or no?
The shooter worked at the school. The shooter's name was most recently Robin Westman. Formerly Robert Westman. And we know what we know about Robin. I'm gonna call him Robert. Fuck Robin. I'm calling him Robert because this is America. Robert had transitioned and completely regretted it. There's videos of him saying how it was the biggest mistake he ever made and he can't go back on it because it would be so embarrassing. So what he's going to do is he's going to take out all of his rage on these innocent children. He was jacked up on SSRIs, other psychiatric drugs, but it was the gun's fault. If we look at the last 15 school shootings, who were they? Trans. Non-binary. Trans. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about psychiatric drugs that are essentially mind control drugs that over 80% of our youth are on because they've been poisoned by vaccines, they've been poisoned by poisoned food dyes, additives, pesticides, herbicides. Did I say vaccines? Then I'm going to say it again because those are bad. We're not talking about them. And now we're pumping them full of mind control drugs because apparently they have ADHD and apparently they have ADD. They can't focus. They're anxious. They have depression. Let's not fix a damn thing about their nutrition. Let's start pumping them with mind control drugs that make them go fucking crazy. It's the gun's fault. It's the gun's fault. It's not the drug's fault. It's not the transition surgery that fucked up this kid's life. You almost feel bad for the kid until you see the videos of him like, I'm going to shoot these kids. Like he literally sounds like the Joker stroking off his weapon, and he writes like, Hail Israel and like trans for life. Like he's just writing all these messages on him that are so like hilariously inconspicuous. But it's the gun's fault. And I think we should flash up the video of the gun and this guy like snarling like a little fucking satanic devil worshiper. And let's look at that gun right in the eyes and say, bad gun. You acted up. Timeout. We're putting you in timeout. We're putting you behind bars, gun. Is it the gun's fault, guys? I want to hear what you think.
Do people think guns are the only way to cause violence?
Just look at the UK. People get stabbed every day.
I mean, bottom line is this guy had the intent to kill. With a gun or without a gun. There was going to be harm. Now, if you're going to be one of those people that say, oh, maybe he wouldn't have killed as many people with a gun. Still fucked up.
How many people did he kill? 3?
Lou?
2.
I know he injured a couple.
2.
Yeah, so AR-15, pistol. Could have been either way. The gun's not the problem, We can have the gun control debate all day. It's obviously wrong. We have to have an armed population. That's the way to prevent crime. There's not a lot of crime in Texas because people are armed. There's not a lot of robberies because people know that people are armed and there's stand your ground laws. If we want to zoom out, kind of what Lou was hitting on there with the SSRIs, with the mental illness, people's diet, not just the food, the information that they take in is slowly killing them every single day, and it's a massive problem for kids under 18 that their brains aren't fully developed. They're getting poisoned by their social media, by their food, everything. And we take things that should be diseases, you know. We have tons more. We have a much higher prevalence of autism. We have a much higher prevalence of ADHD. Pretty much everybody's got ADHD now. That's coming up through the school. The kids are getting poisoned. And so how do we fix the problem? How do we fix the problem with school shooters? How do we fix the mental health problem? I don't know. You know, if we want to argue for more regulation, if we want to argue for kids not to be able to have social media, you know, they already do age verification. I don't know the answer, but something needs to happen. You know, but I do know the problem, right? It's the diet that the kids are taking in. The kids will get in an online echo chamber, and they'll find a bunch of people that will validate everything they say, no matter how crazy it is. Because you can do that online. You can say whatever you want. Somebody will agree. Somebody will disagree. But somebody will definitely agree. And then these people get caught up in these circular spirals of thought, and they go down a deep hole. And that leads to things like suicide. That leads to things like mass shootings. It's 2 pages of the same book. So how do we solve it? You know, I don't know, Lou.
Well, this all ties back to the Maha movement and what RFK Jr. is doing. I would have voted for RFK if he was the Democratic nominee. I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh.
Seeing that guy's interview on the Joe Rogan Experience years ago changed my life forever. It put me down this rabbit hole when I realized I need to pay attention to what the fuck's going on. If I'm going to bring children in this world, I need to know what's going on so I don't sterilize them like our parents did. It's not their fault. How were they supposed to know? But thanks to X, thanks to this open stream of communication, now we can actually expose ourselves to alternative viewpoints and get to the root cause of this chronic disease epidemic that has swamped our country. At the beginning of the year, RFK Jr. announced that the HHS was conducting studies, intense research that they were going to release in September that would identify the root cause of autism. Now, there's not just one root cause. That's the best part. It's not just one thing. The left took this statement from Kennedy and said, he's anti-vax, he's anti-science, he's just using this to take medicine away from us that saves lives. But that's not it. It's not just vaccines. There are some good vaccines. There are some. But there's also some that give you an injury that ruins your voice forever, like RFK Jr., like the flu vaccine. If you read the black box small print on the flu vaccine, you will see
everything.
Everything wrong in your life comes from this vaccine that you take once or twice a year. Why? Because you're supposed to? Because you don't want to get the sniffles for 2 days and have to miss work? The flu vaccine gave him an injury that destroyed his voice. There's small print from the manufacturer that says this vaccine could destroy your voice. What RFK do? He sued the shit out of him and had a multi-billion-dollar settlement. It's what RFK has been doing his whole career. Suing the people poisoning the Hudson, suing the people putting fluoride in our water, atrazine. Everyone thought Alex Jones was crazy for saying the water's turning the fucking frogs gay. But guess what? All you need to do is a little peer-reviewed research, couple studies, and then the FDA can come out like they did this spring and say the fluoride in the water is turning animals gay and it is poisonous for human consumption. We should even rethink putting fluoride in our toothpastes. We should rethink going to the dentist twice a year and getting your teeth painted with fluoride paste. It's interesting how that works. And RFK is going to release the root causes of autism in September. When this comes out, it'll be September. It may even come out before we have a chance to reconnect, Nimrods. And I can't wait to see him expose the poison in the food. I can't wait to see him expose the vaccines, the psychiatric drugs that are warping the minds of our youth and our elderly alike. Like, old people have been soaking up poison food for how long? I feel bad for our grandparents and their generation because they're mind warped by the mainstream media. They're mind warped by what they were told by the textbooks that were written by and published by Robert Maxwell, father of Ghislaine Maxwell.
Where's he from?
Mother Israel, which has existed forever. Right? No.
Depends.
1900s. It was a gift. It was a gift from the UK. Isn't that right, Chet?
Yeah, so people deny that. Originally they colonized Palestine and they handed it over after World War II to the Jewish people, give them an ethno-state, just because of the relentless persecution they endured between 1933 and 1945. But they say they fight for it. They fought off the British. They said, get out of here. This is ours. I don't know the truth. I haven't even looked into it. But not the same thing that the Bible is talking about.
No.
That's for sure.
There's a clear difference between the ancient people of Israel, who forsake their religion, became Christian, and escaped the Holy Land, and the secular government of Israel that now operates in their place. All those white people from Europe that allegedly are from there? I'm not crazy.
70% of them have allergies to pollen from olive trees, which are native to the area. 70% of them are allergic to pollen from olive trees. What does that tell you? I mean, obviously, they're all Polish. They're all Polish. But are the Palestinians allergic to the olive trees? No.
No, because they've been there for thousands and thousands of years. And it's funny because Netanyahu is slaughtering people that are native to the country that he runs. Like, the Gaza Strip is part of Israel. Palestine is part of Israel. Whether you want to say it or not, whether he wants to recognize it or not, it's in his jurisdiction. The IDF controls it. They run the borders. He's killing his own people because they're not Jewish. And he props up Hamas, which he funded in the 90s. He propped them up. He put them in power just to blame them for all the problems so that he can play target practice on the only Catholic church in Gaza and hit a bullseye on the cross on top of the church. And so that he can bomb the last standing hospital in Gaza that's full of humanitarian aid workers and journalists and women and children and the elderly. I feel bad for Jewish people because they are a great people. And Netanyahu has decided to tie Israel to the Jewish faith. He has decided that he is the Pope. He is the epicenter of Judaism, and if you're Jewish and you don't support Israel and everything that they're doing to these innocent people, you're a disgrace. You're a Gentile. That's sick. It's sick and disgusting. And I would never imagine doing that to the people in my jurisdiction. Say what you want about the Pope. He is actually far too accepting to everybody. But when you look back at the Bible, God loves all. And everyone's welcome in the church, whether you're a homosexual or you're a Jewish person or you're Islamic, Buddhist, Hindu. There is a place for you in the church. It doesn't mean you're going to go to heaven. All you have to do is proclaim that Jesus Christ came down to earth, died on the cross for my sins. You don't have to repent. You don't have to do 10 Hail Marys and 5 Our Fathers and then do a little jig. No. You just have to surrender to him. You have to proclaim him as your Lord and Savior, and you have a spot in heaven, no matter how many atrocities you committed, no matter how many rules you broke, how many sins you committed. All you got to do is say, I believe in you, Jesus. And you got to have some sort of guilt for the bad things you did. There is nothing that will stop you from getting into heaven except for yourself. Hot take for the Catholics in the room.
I don't know if I disagree with that, but part of the guilt and part of taking accountability for what you've done goes into repent. Just taking accountability of your actions and saying, hey, I'm going to do better. I messed up here. That's not me. I'm going to do better. No one really knows.
They don't. They don't know.
Personally, I think we're getting a little bit off track.
Yeah, we are.
But, if we want to get into the Catholicism thing, I think while it might not be completely necessary, all the rules, all the traditions, for most people, I think having the structure is great. You know, people that don't understand the internal concept of repentance, people that don't understand guilt. Yeah, most people don't, man. You forget, 50% of people probably don't understand guilt. So having the structure, having procedures built out to help people along their journey, having the structure that has held strong throughout millennia of the earth, no matter how much it's changed, having a stiff church that has a set of rules, a set of traditions that doesn't change, having the mass, having confession, and having repentance. I think even if it's not perfectly outlined word for word in the Bible, I think it helps a ton of people. And that's why Catholicism is the largest religion in the world.
And it's growing. And I want to say, as a non-denominational Christian, every sect of Christianity, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ. And we're all going to go to heaven if we truly
love Jesus,
surrender ourselves to Jesus and love him and feel bad. That's all you got to do. You got to really, truly believe in him, and you'll be good. Because if you believe in him, you're guilty about the bad shit you did, and you feel bad, and you love him. I love the Catholic Church because there are so many different ways for people to unlock a relationship with God. Some people need the structure. Some people reject the structure, and that's okay. Like, there's a place for you. And as a non-denominational Christian, I do not subscribe to any of them. I subscribe to all of them. I subscribe to the Bible and bringing as many people along with us as we can, and saving them and bringing them to heaven in the afterlife, the real life. So Catholicism is amazing. It is powerful, and I see so many young people turning to it because they need structure, and because they reject progress. They want to go back to the things that modern humanity was built upon. And for the record, Catholicism is the largest religion in America, but we were founded by a Protestant revolution. I love Protestants and Catholics all the same. And the Protestants had to stand up to a tyrannical rule that associated itself with the Catholic religion so that they could have freedom and they could love God how they please, according to the Bible in some cases, where the crown wasn't even upholding Catholic doctrine. So I think it's a lot more complex than black and white. I don't reject anyone for the way they love Jesus, as long as they love Jesus. And I think non-denominational Christianity being we say it's one of the newest ones, but really, we just all have a Bible. We don't have to go to church, but we all do because it makes you feel good. Like, coming together and having a community is so essential for our health, our mental, physical, emotional health, coming together. You don't have to go to church to go to heaven, but we do it because it makes us feel good, because it's a good thing to do, and it creates a community. And it can help you answer questions that you might not be able to answer on your own. Like, every time I go to church, the pastor starts the service with, say a prayer for yourself, say a prayer for the people around you, and say a prayer for me, so that God can speak to you through me. I am but a man. My words mean nothing, but I'm hoping that by diving into the text, God will be able to speak to you today and wake you up. If you don't have a relationship with Jesus, raise your hand right now. I hope I can help you find him today. Say a prayer for them. Then we get started. And by the end, he says, for all those people that raised your hand, come down after the service. Talk to us. We have a team that is here to answer your questions. And for those of you that raised your hand earlier, who was touched by God today? Special. Special. We're doing the weave right now, Nimrods.
Yeah. Well, I did have another quick topic on the Maha movement and Robert F. Kennedy. Secretary Kennedy just announced he will now require medical students to learn nutrition to battle chronic disease, highlighting that 7 out of 10 of the top chronic diseases are nutrition related. In the future, doctors won't just prescribe drugs, they'll be able to prescribe diets as well. Every future physician should master the language of prevention before they even touch a stethoscope. A stethoscope.
We're keeping it in.
We can reverse the chronic disease epidemic simply by changing our diets and lifestyles, but to do that, we need nutrition to be a basic part of every doctor's training. We'll start by embedding nutrition directly into college pre-med programs and testing it onto the MCAT.
This is huge.
Massive.
The HHS is the governing arm of the medical establishment. They've announced a plan to embed nutrition directly into college pre-med programs and testing it specifically on the MCAT that every doctor needs to pass in order to practice. This essentially requires doctors to learn nutrition because the HHS surveyed a large swath of doctors and they asked them, when your patients come in and ask for nutrition advice, do you feel like you have the knowledge to adequately serve their need? Over 80% said no. Over 80% from a random study said that they don't have the training to give someone a nutrition plan, to help them fix their diet, to treat chronic disease before it happens and after. There's this thing called preventative medicine. When you figure out where you're deficient, you supplement, you change your diet, and you can prevent chronic disease from happening. You can extend your life by years. You can extend your health span by years. There's a difference between lifespan and health span. Lifespan is how many years you live before you die. Health span is how many years you live and you're thriving. We don't want to just be like that Brian Johnson clown, that absolute retard. He eats plants and processed foods. He stays away from red meat. He's all plant-based. And he claims that his biological age is like 16, but he's 50-something. Guy's a fucking moron.
He looks 50. I'll tell you that. Great points. Great points. We need to have doctors that are able, at least, willing is the next step, but able at least to tell people about this preventative medicine. Most everything that ends up wrong with people is because their diet. And your diet isn't just what you eat. Most of it is what you eat, but what you drink and what you look at all day. You can have mental health issues that compound into physical health issues. But the doctor network, they need to be able to specialize in preventative medicine. We don't need a separate kind of doctor for that. That needs to be included, first of all. And I love what the Means twins are doing. I love that. Their book is great. According to Ways to Well, I'm 13 years old, so that's also good. I'm like Brian Johnson over here.
I'm almost 7.
Yeah.
Almost 7, just like that Clinton email.
Yeah. What is the future of this country? What is the future of health in this country? That's for RFK. That's for us to decide. People don't realize stuff like this anymore. You are the one. You are the group of people that gets to decide what the future of this stuff is. It doesn't have to remain the way it is right now. We don't have to have bread that doesn't come apart when you pour water on it. We don't have to have sponge bread. We don't have to spray everything with Dicot and glyphosate. We don't have to do it. It's not a requirement. Maybe it is a requirement for some companies right now. But these are the things you can change, So people have to stand up for what they believe in. I think the open information age is going to do a lot for it. I think we already have a big movement going on the power of preventative medicine. The shit that's going wrong between the FDA and the food lobbies. The shit that the FDA, the food lobbies, and the old cigarette executives, the connection between them. We're gonna have a future where people are pushing us in the right direction. Whereas in the last 40 or 50 years, it's all been in the wrong direction. It's all been increased profit for the companies. And I know I sound like a leftist right now, but if we have a country full of sick people, who's it good for? It's good for the doctors. It's good for the pharmaceutical companies.
Big food.
It's good for the insurance companies. it's bad for all the people. The people are what makes the country. So we have to grow past the idea that everything is set in stone. We can change the way doctors treat people because obviously what we're doing now isn't working. We're the most developed country in the world, and we're also the most sick country in the world. The richest country in the world, the most sick country in the world, the least food insecurity in the world, and still the sickest country in the world. We're at the point. We're at the point where people can make up their minds, turn the page on what we've been doing, and grow towards a better way that we can approach health, we can approach preventative health, we can approach keeping people out of chronic disease, keeping people out of the medical system. We're getting there. Like, this is the time where we can take advantage of it.
The problem with traditional medicine is that we're told medicine is a one-size-fits-all. And I want to be clear, there are things that we know for sure are bad for you, that we know for sure are poisoning you, but these are the exact things that are being prescribed to you by the doctors. These are the exact same things that Big Food is putting in your Rice Krispie treats. It's the same thing that they're putting in the bread. It's even the same thing that they're spraying on the produce. Everywhere you look, you cannot hide from poison. Why? Because of the grasp of Big Pharma, Big Food, corporate interests. When people finally realized that cigarettes were bad for you, the titans from the cigarette industry invested in the two largest food companies in America. And they took the same science that they used to make cigarettes addictive. They made food addictive. They colluded with Big Pharma. They made an executive decision. What are we going to blame heart disease on? Sugar or cholesterol? They chose cholesterol because there's an entire medical establishment that is built around treating high cholesterol. Statins. When in reality, sugar is the real thing causing heart disease. The truth is, medicine is not a one-size-fits-all. There is a different, unique way to treat every individual's deficiencies. Preventative medicine starts with a comprehensive blood panel to figure out where you're deficient, because your health is shaped by genetics. It's shaped by vaccine injuries, nutrient deficiencies, the environment you live in, how much sunlight you're getting, how much time you spend working out every week. This is vastly different from person to person. And by getting your blood drawn, doing a comprehensive blood panel, you're able to look at a much larger, more complex swath of biomarkers to figure out holistically where your problems are. If you go to a traditional medicine doctor, you have high cholesterol, they pump you with drugs, they tell you to stop eating red meat and dairy. When in reality, you could be extremely deficient in vitamin D or magnesium, which could be contributing to the cholesterol problem. You could have a thyroid issue, but the doctor tells you it's a testosterone problem, or vice versa, and they pump you with the wrong drugs and it ends up destroying the other. We have to look at medicine holistically. Complex swath of biomarkers to figure out holistically, where are you? Where are you deficient? How do these different biomarkers interact with each other? How can we change your diet and your lifestyle to treat this? And once you've made those changes and you still have room for improvement, we start supplementing. We don't pump you with drugs. We supplement with powders and capsules that are full of what? Plants that were gifted to humanity by God, not chemicals that were made in a lab by satanic, pedophile, sex trafficking scumbags.
Hey, Lou, I have a point here. Something I think about. You know, whenever you consider, you go down the route of alternative medicine, you think about it, you talk about, getting to chiropractic, you talk about getting to nutrition, you talk about things like that. You're going Eastern medicine, things like that. How do we turn the system that we have now that is designed to get people sick and keep them on prescriptions forever? How do we turn that into a good system without letting the same type of people get in charge of the new system and turning it into the same thing again? even if it is a better way to go about it, even if we are approaching it the correct way, what guarantee do we have that the people that are doing it are acting within our best interest? What guarantee do we have that they aren't going to try and exploit people their entire lives? What guarantee do we have that they're not acting on a bunch of neurotic people that are scared that they're unhealthy and selling them snake oil to save them from their unhealthiness?
Great point, Chet. If you turn on liberal media, the average leftist or normie, so-called patriot influencer will tell you that RFK is not doing enough. We're not seeing enough action. Why do we have to wait till September to figure out the root cause of autism? He's a snake oil salesman, anti-vaxxer, and science denier. What RFK is doing is absolutely ingenious because he is putting a shield over the American people so that no matter who comes in office after him, we will be protected from big industry and corporate interests. We will be protected by the deep state that wants to poison us and make money off of our sickness. What he's doing is he is conducting research right now. What we need, what our shield will be, our protective shield will be publishing peer-reviewed, placebo-tested studies on everything. Right now, every single study is skewed. In the Biden administration, every administration before him, Republican or Democrat, they released what they wanted to. And there's probably only 2% of all studies that have been conducted that have been published. Now RFK has access to the archive, and his team is diving through it. They tell us cholesterol is the leading cause of heart disease, but they have 99% of all studies they conducted showing that sugar is the finger that pulled the trigger. Peer-reviewed studies, placebo-tested studies. What RFK is doing in the HHS right now is going to reverberate for generations. It's going to protect us from everyone that wants us to be sick. And that is how you make America healthy again. Once he gets all this information out there, he can start giving us health stipends so that the government will incentivize you to go to the gym, get a gym membership, go do some contrast therapy, get a comprehensive blood panel, pay for some supplements, because it's fucking expensive to buy all organic produce and grass-fed dairy and grass-fed beef and pasture-raised chicken, and it's, hundreds and hundreds of dollars of supplements every month. We need to make it more affordable, but instead, people rely on what their insurance covers. What does insurance cover? Shit that poisons you. It covers you going to the next fucking appointment so they can give you a consultation and send you the next guy. That's what they do. We need to take money out of health. This is a bipartisan issue. It's a bipartisan issue, and RFK Jr. is setting us up for success. Once this information's out there, they can't touch us. You can't justify the poison when there's cut and dry evidence. And this just harps back to Kratom. What's going on with Kratom right now? There is such a lack of research, published, reviewed research on Kratom. 80% of all Kratom research comes from one man, Dr. Chris McCurdy. We've talked about him before. He went on Huberman, made a plea to the HHS and the FDA to ban 7.0 and start conducting research on Kratom. And that's exactly what he did. And a week later, the FDA brought him in as a consultant, and he is now the leading voice on Kratom education and research in the federal government. He is protecting the consumption, production, use, selling of Kratom nationwide, and he's giving the power back to the states to make decisions that are best for their people. But once these studies get released, once more comprehensive research is conducted, they can't ban Kratom. They can't keep the fluoride in the water. No. Indisputable evidence. That's what we need, and that's what we're going to get. But we have to be patient. Turn off CNN and start paying attention to what he's doing, because he'll tell you.
He will tell you. You know what's interesting to me? This anti-corporatism, anti-profit incentive about the medical lobby. A lot of this is leftist talking points. these are leftist issues, or they were at least. It's interesting to me that they kind of got co-opted by the neo right wing. You know, like, where did that come from? You know, how did we end up with RFK? How did we end up with anti-corporate pharma, anti-corporate medicine in the right wing aisle? I don't understand, but here it is. Here it is now. I think my conclusion is that this is now fully a bipartisan thing. This isn't a partisan, like, the parties obviously, it doesn't really matter anymore. You know, we have the issues that go both ways, but this is just what people want. So when we have the entire population, no matter if you're a leftist or if you're a diehard Christian nationalist conservative, and everybody wants to break down the structure that we have around medicine, it's going to end up happening. I mean, eventually. You know, a lot of people are still stuck on the old ways. A lot of people like the status quo. A lot of people have jobs that they pay their bills with. A lot of people don't want to change anything because it's scary. But we have enough of a movement now in order to change things. And that gives me hope. There's not a lot of things that give me hope anymore, just knowing about everything that we know about now. But this is one of them. So this is the opportunity for people to speak up, for people to change the way we run things, for people to, we're going to grow as a country. And the Make America Healthy Again thing, you know, I think it's kind of a silly slogan, but it's a good point. And we have to do something. The country is trending in the wrong direction. We have to make a change, and we have the movement now to do it.
Great point. And again, this is a bipartisan issue. The legacy GOP is pro-capitalist, and they've been protecting industry from liability for years. I mean, say what you want about Reagan being the greatest president of all time, the most popular president of all time. No, it was Richard Nixon, first off. And he shielded vaccine manufacturers from liability with a devastating executive order that has protected them all the way through the COVID-19 pandemic. So historically, the GOP is all about that money. And the legacy Democrat Party is medical freedom and the environment, being green, eating organic. Like, this all came from the leftists. I mean, RFK Jr. has been a Democrat his whole life. He's, you know, descendant of the most prolific faces of the Democrat Party of all time, John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy, his father. We're in a unique point where the political party lines have been blurred, and you cannot get caught up in the traditional definitions because they mean nothing anymore. You know, if you're a Democrat, you hate the Republicans. If you're a Republican, you hate the Democrats. How about let's just not talk about either of those, and let's look at what is the current state of the union. The people that claim to still be Democrats are protecting pedophilia. They are pro-corporate interest. They are corrupting the government. They are taking money from foreign countries to pass laws to give American tax dollars to another country that will then money launder it and then use it to kill Christians in their region. We're at a unique time where there's this new thing called the common sense movement. There's the right and there's the left. Let's stop saying that. Let's just talk about the people that claim to be Democrat, the people that claim to be Democrat, and the people that claim to be Republican for the most part. Like the people. I'm not talking about the people in office, like those scumbag neocon rhinos in the Congress. I'm talking about common sense people that listen to podcasts and go to comedy shows and have conversations like this with their friends and go to country concerts and go outside and don't wear a mask and have fun. That's what common sense people, right? We're at a unique time where there's this common sense movement, and it is the intersection of free market capitalism from the legacy GOP and a desire to save the children and end the chronic disease crisis from the historic Democratic Party. Let's not hate each other. Let's start talking about right and wrong, good and bad. And let's finally make America healthy again, make this country prosperous again, take the power away from the deep state, take the power and money away from industry and lobbyists, and let's put it back in the hands of the American people so that we can take the power back and actually make this country great again and actually restore humanity and the will of God. That's what we need. A populist revolution.
You don't even need to like Trump. You don't even need to. There's more to what we need to, there's more to the movement we need than being a never doubt Trump guy, you know? And there's a lot of idiots that are, you know, super Trump, and they're always like, okay, if he does something wrong, and then they'll immediately agree with it, and then they'll say, if you don't, you were never the right guy. You were never good. You're always bad. You're a Democrat. It's gone. It's all gone. You know, and the new generation of people growing up, we still have the same issues. You know, there's still people that are diehard partisan lines. We got to win the election, things like that. But the movement doesn't just encompass the right side of the aisle. You know, that's what I'm saying. We're talking about leftist things here. We're talking about regulating pharma. We're talking about regulating the medical lobby. There's a consensus approach now. It's a compromise where we're reaching the middle, and we have a chance finally to go after the right problems. The problems that are causing so much harm, the problems that are causing all the kids to have ADHD, all the kids to be suicidal, the rates of obesity to go up sevenfold, the rates of heart disease, cancer, liver disease, everything to go up sevenfold. This is the turning point. It's the apex. It's the crux of the problem, and it's not a right-wing issue anymore.
We're on the same side.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, when having a conversation with them, once you mention something they don't like, their brain shuts off and they go full defense mode. You got to fight it. Because we talked about a lot of fucked up shit today. Stuff that just shouldn't fly. And Lou talked about undisputed evidence. So you got to do your own research. You got to educate yourself to find that evidence so you can start thinking critically.
Yep. Nimrods, I'm going to take us out with this. MAGA does not equal the common sense movement. MAGA does not equal conservative populism or populism in general. The thing is, the GOP more closely aligns with the common sense movement, and Trump is the current leader of the GOP. Now, the left is in 100% lockstep because they don't believe in free speech and open discourse. And they have been suppressing child sex trafficking networks, pedophile blackmail operations for decades. That is a Democrat-run establishment. So right now, those that still claim to be on the left are completely unified, and their numbers are dwindling. There is a lot of discourse on the right because we believe in free speech, because we believe in populism, freedom of information. So I tell you this, Nimrods. If you hate Trump, there's a place for you in the common sense movement. If you love Trump, there's a place for you in the common sense movement. If you're Christian, there's a place for you. If you're not Christian, there's also a place for you. There is a separation of church and state that should be considered. We welcome anyone into the common sense movement with open arms. Don't judge me because I voted for a guy, because I'm pissed off at a lot of the shit he's doing. But he's better than the alternative. And I'm not just going to bend my knee to him and let him do whatever he wants. I will support him and I will cheer him on when he does great things for humanity and delivers devastating blows to the deep state. But I will be the loudest man on the internet when he betrays the mandate that the American people gave him. So let's separate what it means to be a populist from Donald Trump. Let's use him as a vehicle to deliver the will of the American people. And let's look forward to who will replace him and advance the America First movement forward. Trump is the beginning of turning the ship around and opposing globalism. But he's not the end. This is just the start of the golden age of America and the Second American Revolution. God bless America. God bless our troops. God bless God. And remember, the answer to 1984 is 1776. This is Lou Stump, alongside my brothers Chet Liftkit and Joey Donati, signing off from FEMA Region 6. Follow at the Nimrod Pod on X. Subscribe to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you like this episode, click the like button. Repost it. Send it to your friends. Send it to your grandmother. Send it in your work chat and tell them these Nimrods are up to something. Thank you for listening.
Love you guys.